But again, a little bit of commentary in the first two stages here can be very, very useful to keep us on track, to remind us of what we're supposed to do. I think that's enough for that one. So then, if we continue to practice, we can go around the corner here to stage 3 and 4. And this road here is the road of mindfulness. So now, at stage 3 and 4, our mindfulness is getting a lot better. So much so that what we see here at stage 3, and stage 3 here is called resurgent attention, is now we see that the rope of mindfulness is tied to the elephant of the mind, which means that now we can focus on the object longer periods of time, up to 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And now if we become distracted, we quickly recognize that and we quickly come back to the object. And that's symbolized here with the elephant turning the head backwards, meaning we're quickly coming back to the object. But now what we see here is that the rabbit has come into the picture. The rabbit is symbolizing what's called subtle dullness, subtle laxity. And from stage 3, this starts to become potentially an issue. Subtle dullness is where we're actually focusing on the object quite well, it's quite there, but our attention is not very sharp. If we don't notice that, we can get stuck here. Because by stage 3, we're focusing on the object quite well. If we get distracted, we quickly come back. So it seems like we've gone a long way, and maybe we're nearly at Shamatha. So even though our mindfulness is getting quite good, the quality of our attention still needs a lot of work. So we need to start to pick up that our attention is not very sharp and clear. If we don't, we'll sort of get stuck here, we won't be able to progress. So let's have a look again what Alan Wallace says about stage 3 here. This on page 43, he says the following. When you reach the third stage, resurgent attention, during each practice session, your attention is fixed most of the time upon your meditative object. By now, you will have increased the duration of each session beyond the initial 24 minutes to perhaps twice that. So what we see in his book, he talks a lot about 24-minute sessions. So you might ask, well, why 24? Why not 25 or 20? The reason being is that when these sorts of meditation texts were written in ancient India, the measurement of time, they didn't have hours, minutes and seconds. In fact, they divided the day into 60 units. So 1/60th of a day is 24 minutes, of course. And so that unit of time was called a gatika. And so often in the meditation text, it says, as a beginner, it's pretty good, it's good to meditate sort of 1 gatika. So that's why we have 24 minutes here. And he's saying here by stage 3, we're probably meditating at least double that. Which brings us to the point of quality over quantity. That in this practice, it's important that we always emphasize quality over quantity. As a beginner, if we try and meditate too long, what's going to happen, of course, is we're not going to be able to sustain that. And in the latter part of your meditation, you're just going to fall into complete distraction and complete dullness and daydreaming and so forth. Which means that you're getting caught up in the very things you're trying to overcome. So always emphasize quality over quantity. So as a beginner, it's very much recommended to have many short sessions. How short will depend on us as an individual, our level of capacity. In this retreat, we're mainly doing 20 minutes and some 15-minute sessions as well. I think 20 minutes is a good amount of time for many people as a beginner. It's enough time to get into the practice, but not too much time that we just sort of disengage completely and just fall into complete dullness and complete distraction. But always emphasize quality over quantity. However, if we want to go further, like for example, we want to get up here to stage 3 and beyond, then we'll need to start to extend the amount of time we meditate. Because if we're only ever doing like 15 or 20 minutes in the morning, then we'll make limited progress. How to know when to extend? One measure of knowing when to extend the amount of time we meditate is if our normal experience is at the end of the meditation, our normal experience is, I would have liked to have done a little bit more. That's a sign to increase, but don't increase from 20 to 40 in one go. 3 to 5 minute increments. So if we're doing 20 minutes, maybe then go to 25 minutes and then stay with that and then move up, but always emphasize quality over quantity. If you want to meditate a little bit longer in the morning but you can't sustain that, let's say you want to meditate 30 minutes every morning but you can't sustain it, then break it up into 2 15-minute sessions with a little break. So a little bit like you're doing with Maya before breakfast. Break it into 2 shorter sessions with a little break in the middle. At all times, though, value the quality of your meditation over the quantity of time spent in each session. If you sit for long periods, but let your mind rove around unnoticed among distractions or fall into dullness, not only are you wasting your time, but you're also developing bad habits that will only get harder and harder to break. When you are on the second stage, although you experience periods when your attention was continually engaged with the meditative object for as long as a minute, most of the time you were still caught up in distractions. When you reach the third stage, your attentional stability has increased so that most of the time you remain engaged with the object. Occasionally there are still lapses when you completely forget the object, but you quickly recognize them and patch up these holes in the continuity of attention. Long before you reach this stage, you may occasionally have a session in which your mind seems to remain on the object most of the time. But don't be fooled. Even amateur golfers occasionally hit a birdie, but that doesn't mean they are ready to go on the pro circuit. The third stage is achieved only when your mind remains focused on the object most of the time in virtually all your sessions. For most people, the primary problem in this phase of practice is still coarse excitation, and it is the power of mindfulness that you accomplish this third stage. So that's what it means to be at a stage. Like here at stage 3, we said that stage 3 means you can focus on the object maybe 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and if you get distracted, you quickly recognize that and come back. If that is your normal experience, that's what it means to be at stage 3. Sometimes you actually may be able to focus on the object the entire session without ever losing it, have a peak experience. On other times you may lose it a few more times. But if that is your average experience, that's what it means to be at a particular stage. Okay, let's go to stage 4 now. So again, stage 4 is on the road of mindfulness. So now mindfulness is getting very good here at stage 4. And at stage 4, now we can hold the object the entire session without ever completely losing it. So we never lose the object now. But still, we have a lot of work to do on the quality of our attention. You may have noticed now that in the beginning phases of this practice, that you can sort of focus on the breath, and then also at the same time, it seems like think about what we're going to have for breakfast this morning. So it seems like we can do 2 things at once. No, we can't. It's impossible to focus on 2 things at once. What's actually happening is that in a very short period of time, you are going backwards and forwards very quickly between 2 things. So it sort of creates the illusion that we're focusing on 2 things simultaneously. But actually what's happening is our attention is completely fragmented. So it's not very good quality of attention. Even to the point now where you maybe are mainly focusing on breakfast, what's coming for breakfast, but a little bit in the corner of your mind you're still managing to focus on the breath. So that can even happen at stage 4, that we can be focusing mainly on something else but a little bit still holding on to the breath. So still a lot of work to be done here at stage 4 in terms of quality of attention. So again, let's just briefly look at what Alan Wallace says here. So this is on page 62. As mentioned previously, in the fourth stage of shamatha practice, you achieve the power of mindfulness, and the practice comes into its own. While your attention is no longer prone to coarse excitation, that's where you get completely distracted, it is still flawed by a medium degree of excitation. When medium excitation occurs, you don't completely lose track of your object of attention, but involuntary thoughts occupy the centre of attention and the meditative object is displaced to the periphery. To compare this with coarse excitation, let's again take the analogy of tuning into a radio station. Coarse excitation is like losing your chosen station altogether as your tuner slips either to another station or into mere static. Medium excitation is like drifting slightly toward another station, but not so completely that you can no longer hear your chosen station at all. You still hear it, but it's muffled by extraneous noise. The achievement of the fourth stage brings with it a sense of accomplishment. You are now an experienced shamatha trainee, no longer a complete beginner. If you have not gained a sound conceptual understanding of the entire shamatha path, you might well think that you have already come to its culmination. This can easily give rise to some degree of complacency concerning your meditative practice, which brings its own dangers. Any questions about any of these four stages that we've briefly covered?
What does complacency?
Complacency means complacency. What's another word for complacency? Complacency means, oh, the job's almost done. I can sort of, relax a little bit. I don't have to keep putting effort. To be complacent means, what's another word for complacent? Maybe the Hebrew word. What's the Hebrew word for complacency? Smug, yeah, not exactly the same, but complacent means not paying close enough attention and sort of thinking it's all okay when actually there's still a lot of work to do. Any other questions? Any comments or questions about the first four stages? Then I'll just add one more thing, and that'll be enough for today. That came up from a question, I think, earlier about letting the mind wander and having creative thoughts, and also the idea of intuition and creativity. So for that, we'll go over to the left in the middle there. We see up in the tree is a monkey holding some fruit, and underneath there is number 19. And so if we go over on the next page, number 19 says, since virtuous thoughts are an interruption at the time of shamatha meditation, it is necessary to stop them. At other times it is not necessary. So what this is saying here is that particularly around these middling stages of shamatha, when our mind has become much more calm, more clear, more focused, then what's going to happen is because of that, you're creating a space for not only creativity to come up, but also often great ideas and also solutions to problems. Sometimes we even have this experience ourselves. Sometimes we have a problem at work and we've been trying to work it out all day long, nothing. We go to bed and then we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and suddenly go, oh, that's the answer. So where did that come from? Again, it came from very deep in our own mind. So similarly, if there are things you've been trying to resolve and you haven't managed to figure them out at the conceptual level, and you have the intention you want an answer, then often what can happen is that when you get into this space in shamatha practice, where the mind becomes very calm, clear and focused, that allows that space for these answers to come. And also sometimes some really great ideas come, virtuous thoughts come, as mentioned here. What this is saying is that if that happens, this is not the right time to entertain those thoughts. but rather go simply, that's a wonderful thought, I'll attend to that after the meditation. If you're worried about forgetting it, then again you can have a little notepad next to your where you meditate, jot down a few key words, and go back to the meditation. And actually this is a technique that I often use if I'm trying to even just remember something and I've got to do something and I can't remember something I do, and you just sort of sit there going, I don't do that anymore, I just stop that and I just sort of, and in fact I tend to use the Shavasana posture, I just sort of lie down, and then often just as I'm lying down, here comes the memory. Or again, what can be very helpful is again this problem solving. If you can't solve a problem cognitively normal, then do the same. Just have the intention of wanting an answer to the problem, then go into this sort of Shavasana posture and into that spaciousness, and then see what happens. And you'll be surprised what can come up there. And more of that I'll talk about, because that's particularly relevant with respect to the practice that we're going to do the day after tomorrow, the resting in awareness. So I'll comment a little bit more about that day after tomorrow. So that's all I wanted to really cover this evening. Any last questions or points before we wrap it up there this evening?
What stage are we supposed to get to?
Supposed to.
I'm serious, in these 5 days, in order to do Vipashyana, like the next 5 days in a good way.
So remember, in this retreat, we're just learning the practice, but what we're going to see, and here's the short answer, and we'll get the longer answer later, is that, in fact, we'll also talk about this tomorrow night when we're going to talk about, because this last diagram here is actually Vipashyana, so we'll talk about that relationship tomorrow evening. But the short answer is that if we don't put any effort into Shamatha, then trying to do Vipashyana, I think, we're not really going to get anywhere, because it's the same as everything in our life. If we're not focused, if we're completely distracted or half asleep, and we try to do anything in life, it's not going to work very well. So similarly here, if we don't put some effort into Shamatha and have a little bit more calm, more clear, more focused mind, then Vipashyana is not going to work very well at all. But that doesn't mean that we have to achieve Shamatha before we begin Vipashyana. In fact, we probably will never achieve Shamatha without doing some Vipashyana first. So what we're going to see is that initially emphasize Shamatha to work on that, but then as we're working on it, start bringing in some Vipashyana practice. Because if we have a little bit of progress here, even maybe stage 2 or 3, and then we start bringing in some Vipashyana, the Vipashyana will start to have a little bit of an effect, and that effect will start to reduce a little bit the mental afflictions, which means then when we go into Shamatha practice, we'll have less obstacles, we can go a little bit deeper, then we're a bit deeper in there, then we go to Vipashyana, go a bit deeper, so they'll sort of feed each other, they'll work together, but I'll talk more about that a little bit later.
I have two questions again. On 19, it was, at other times, it's not necessary.
Yeah, other times, I mean, outside of meditation, we are trying to cultivate virtuous thoughts, in fact, motivation and so forth. But in the middle of Shamatha practice, that's not the right time to work on that. That's all it's saying.
And all this attention and concentration, it's like waves. It's up. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. It's not constantly going up all day. These stages, that's what I feel.
Okay. So, of course, each one of these stages is improving, but...
In life it's like...
But in the short term, it's like this.
Yes.
But in the long term, if we're applying the practice correctly, there will be an improvement. So this is sort of the longer term trajectory. But within that, you're right, there'll be a lot of up and down, because some days our mind is naturally more quiet and still and focused, other days more agitated and so forth, yes.
So it's morning and night, it's different.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of variation in the short term. Yes, correct. Okay, let's leave it there. So again, we'll finish the evening again with the Shavasana meditation, the Shavasana practice. Again, just really emphasising that relaxation, releasing any tension, releasing any thoughts, and just relaxing. So again, I think we may have a few extra cushions or so. I think someone yoga mats. So I've got yoga mats, so then we can be a bit more space on the mats ourselves. So we've got yoga mats. So if you've got those, bring those out. Also, one thing you might like to think about is if you're lying down and you're finding that your knees are sort of hyperextending a little bit, then you can even put a little cushion under your knees so your knees are a little bit bent if you find that more comfortable. And again, if you're a little bit cold, you can put a shawl or a blanket over your body, and again, a little cushion for the head is often very helpful as well. Ready, someone will need to switch off the lights. Remember again, the Shavasana posture is lying flat on your back, the feet slightly apart, the arms slightly away from the body and the palms facing upwards, and that can help keep the shoulders open. Allowing your awareness to descend into the body. And simply become aware of sensations throughout the body. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. And softening and relaxing all the muscles in the face. Mouth and jaw soft and relaxed. And all the muscles around the eyes soft and relaxed. In this way, allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And relaxing more deeply with each out-breath. And with each out-breath, letting go of any thoughts that may have arisen, happily releasing them. And allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. And simply becoming aware of the rhythm of the breath. Noticing if it's slow or fast, deep or shallow, long or short. Without trying to modify it in any way. So simply maintaining mindfulness of the rhythm of the breath. And relaxing and releasing any agitation, tension or distraction on each out-breath.